Hello and welcome everybody today to Wise Women's Words. Today I have a very special guest who I'm really thrilled and excited to bring to you because not only is she an expert in her area, but she's got a lot of bits and pieces that she can teach us all so we can also learn and build our and empower ourselves to greater beings. So let me introduce to you to Kim Guillory, who is an integrative mind body coach and business mentor, helping holistic coaches and practitioners create sustainable wealth and impact. Now, never mind is she that, but she's also written a book, which she will talk to us about, and so much more. But I'm not going to delay this anymore because, Kim, please share with us and welcome to Wise Women's Words. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. Just the warm up for that was exciting. I was getting fired up. My name is Kim. I'm from Louisiana. I have a pretty big mission, and so that's kind of what's in the book and all of the offers that I do for the whole holistic mind body world. That's really where my focus and attention is. I see so many people suffering, and it's only because they don't have the message and the tools that they can self-heal. Like, I realized that after many years of suffering myself, that the suffering's optional. The circumstances are not, the situations are not all, but how we handle them, how we deal with them, or the tools that we use. If I would have known that was available at an earlier age, I think I could have changed a few things. And so I was on a mission to, if ever I figure this out, I will never stop sharing it. And that's where I'm at today.
That's fabulous. It's so funny because that's exactly why I'm on my mission as well, and why I feel that it's so important that we need to share our stories with one another, because if we don't share our stories and show people what we've made it through, what else, what other way? I don't know why we're getting some type of back. Maybe that's a little bit better. I don't know what other way that we can empower other people by listening to what we've made it through, and giving people that bit of ammunition to help them through it as well.
Yeah, and I think when we tell our story, that we give others permission to fully experience theirs. And I think that's what I was looking for all of these years. So I started working back in 1997. I had 5 kids and I needed something to do. And so I opened up my first business to give me an out, something somewhere to put creative energy. I didn't know then that I would fall in love with business. But for about 20 years, I was researching all of my clients. Like, I was trying to figure out, how do you stay married? How do you raise these kids? How do you do this? And I was looking for the stories, Glenda. Even today, I think about, who inspires you most? Is it someone who's kind of like had it all and it just kind of fell into their lap? Or is it like someone who dug through the trenches and figured it out? It's for sure. The stories of empowerment come from the ones who didn't believe it was possible, but somehow figured it out. And that's what I was looking for. That's what I was digging for. I was reading books and, trying to, what's the recipe? That was the biggest thing. I wanted to stay married. All my life, I wanted a family. I didn't have a family when I was a kid growing up. And I got pregnant when I was 19 years old, and his dad didn't claim him. And so here I was with this baby, and still no family, still no family. What do I do? And so when I met my husband, he had 3 children, and they had been left by their mom. And so we had these children who were displaced. And that kind of took me back to where I came from. And I was like, we got to stop this cycle. We need to stop this now. So when we were struggling in the relationship and I was trying to figure out how to stay married, that's what had me hooked. I was like, no, we're not going to leave these kids again. We've got to figure this out. But to be honest, to find someone who was living the type of life that I was wanting, even though I hadn't seen it before, it was really hard to find an example, to find a role model or a mentor or someone to, how do you do this life thing, man? Really, how do you do it?
And sometimes you just have to create it out your own ways. Sometimes there isn't that mentor around, but you still got to keep looking no matter what. But sometimes you just need to sort of figure it out yourself as well.
what if it's the thing that we're supposed to figure out for us to share? Like now I can say that. I wasn't thinking that then. No, I was very desperate, digging around. And I remember I was doing nails and hair, so I was seeing the same ladies over and over. So I really got to know everything about their relationships, the ins and outs, the things that was going on, the kids, when they had a bad week, when they had a good week. And I was like, nope, that's not what I want. Nope, that's not what I want. Nope, nope, nope. Like I was like, I don't even know if they like their husband. And so it was like I continued to go on that search. But I think you're right. Sometimes it's the catalyst that helps us to create what contribution we're going to give to the world.
So we have to look sometimes deep within us and also really feel what feels good to us in our own souls. And I'm a very firm believer of learning of having that feeling in you to feel like, be aware of how you feel when things happen, what happens in your body, and then from that is this something that you want to pass it on? Is this something that you want to create more of or less of all of these type of things? And if you're not aware of what's going on in your body, then you're really not knowing what's really going on. You don't know how to tap into what you really have.
Yeah, and you just said something that like got my attention really quick about when you said, "Is this something that we want to continue on or pass on?" It was like I put my hand on my child when he was born, and I said, "God, help me to break these cycles." Like I couldn't imagine bringing a child into the world. Like somehow I knew this back then, even though I didn't know this, right? So this was like in 1988. But I just knew that there had to be something to change. There had to be something that to break or do differently. And I mean, I was young. I remember weeping and crying on my knees and having my hand on him, and it was like it has to stop here. Because I was barely surviving it. The reason I'm probably still alive today is because I got pregnant, because I had something else that I had to be responsible for and live for, someone else. And he was my saving grace, to remaining there. When you don't have the worthiness and the self-esteem for yourself and you can't get out of the suffering, but then when there's something else to live for, when there's something else to be responsible for,
Totally.
and you know what I'm saying? So it's like I somehow knew that back then that there was something more that I hadn't figured out yet or hadn't seen yet. And I desperately wanted, I couldn't imagine bringing this child into experiencing what I was experiencing, that I didn't even want to live. I didn't even want to stay here, And so it's like in my mind, that's all I remember. And that's all I knew from childhood. And I was like desperately praying, for these resources.
No, I really hear you well and clear because, I wasn't able to stay in a marriage because of, it wasn't a good place. And I knew that it wasn't what I was trying to give to my children.
Mm-hmm.
So it was those kids that kept me going. It was those kids that kept making me figure out which way I was turning, which way I was moving forward, and giving me that power to move forward. Because if it wasn't for those kids, I would never have made it through as well.
Yeah, it's something bigger than ourselves, right?
Totally.
That's what we were talking about, before the show is we're fixed, we're whole, we're here. It's like the purpose now is so much bigger than us. It's not even personal anymore. I mean, it's personal in the way of it's the purpose, that's inside of us. But there's nothing for me to attain, like through wealth, through like my camera keeps going out like that. Is it the internet? Did you see that?
Yeah, it froze for a moment.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
And so when the focus becomes on others, it just changes things, and that's what it was like having the children, the marriage, like trying to figure this out. And it's not that I was so attached to it having to work out with this man. It was this family, because coming from a broken home, I always wanted a family. It was the units that it's like, I just got to figure this out. And listen, in those years when I was so lost and confused and, seeking the resources, I was sick. And I know now about metaphysics and psychosomatics, and all of this stuff, but I didn't know then. I was searching. And, one of the women who led the way for me was Louise Hay. And it was, she had therapy, right? She had the courage to talk about the things that she talked about.
Right. And nobody in those years brought up any of those things. So it was a world all to itself. And I listened to her all the time. I actually brought in a lot of her mirror work because I'm a believer of it.
Yeah, yeah. She's actually the big part of my book. I was riding my bike one day. I was listening to this, probably Hay House 2014, one of the things, their events that they had. And she's talking about changing your thoughts and, these affirmations. I was like, no, it doesn't work. He's right. It's one more person that's not giving me the answers. And I was like, it's more than that. We have to dismantle the belief, the core belief. Like I can't just keep putting this on top of that. Like I have to do something. I stopped my bike, like on the side of the road. I was riding while I was listening to it. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to finish this work. Right. It was like, I just looked up and it was like, I just knew that there was something here. Crazy story. I got an invitation to write a book to become part of a platform. And I was like, what am I going to write about? I don't know what I'm going to write about. I didn't want to tell like my life story or anything, but I decided to write about how did I figure out how to want to live?
Wow.
There's a way. There's a way I figured out how to stay married. There's a way I figured out how to have kids, how to run a business. I had done a lot of things. And I was like, actually, how did I figure that out? And so I just went into questioning. And the day I started to write the book, I was buffering on Facebook, right? Because I go to type and I'm like, oh my God, I'm frozen. And so I opened up social media and it said, rest in peace, Louise Hay. The day I started writing my book,
wow.
Died.
Wow, that's crazy. And I believe in all these things, right? So it was your message that was sent to you in one of the most powerful forms that there can be.
Yeah,
so
it's an extension of the work, and I honor and respect and consider her one of my first and the greatest mentors all the way through, because she had the courage to say, you can heal yourself, you can heal your life, you can heal your relationships, you can heal your body. And I believed her. I believed it. And I had 15 surgeries. I was on medication for 24 years. I was diagnosed with over a dozen different diagnoses, and I was going for doctor after doctor and tests and, doing all of the things. And if I tell you, like, I was labeled with bipolar or mental depression, just all of the fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, all of the things. And losing my organs, I was like, no, I've got to go help the people save their organs. They're just like taking them out and throwing them away, And so it's like my story's pretty big. It's like I can't just ignore that. Although I did spend some time like invalidating it, like it didn't make sense. I was kind of had some shame about it. My granddaughter came out of the room one day and she had like a neck brace and 2 wristbands and the ankle and the knee brace on my crutches. And it hit me like a ton of things. She had found the drawer with all of these things in it. And I was like, oh God, am I a hypochondriac? Like, I was like, I got hot. I felt so much shame. I was like, I'm one of those people, it's like, I'm broken. What's wrong with me? And that was a huge turnaround for me to see her standing there. I wish I would have taken a picture of it. She was tiny. She's a teenager now. And I was like, there's something here. There's something here.
And that's the thing, what I want to, now that you're saying this, I want to just put it out there to people because, we all have challenges and it's very real. I relate to you on so many levels because, at the age of 19 or 18, I became paralyzed for a while. And it was, at that point in life thinking that this is what life was going to give to me. And it was, very challenging moments. I've had back situations, so I get it. But there's more than just the physical sense of it all, too.
Yeah.
There's also the real sense of what's going on in our heads that pulls us back and actually hurts us in so much more ways than anybody can ever see it, because the fact is we can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And, with COVID, mental illness has really come up huge. But now it's time to start showing people how to get through this time and become whole again.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it doesn't have to be physically, it can also be mentally.
Yeah, what I started to really put together and recognize through this is understanding the emotional body. I didn't have an awareness of it before, and I didn't realize that our parents, grandparents, generations before us didn't have an awareness of it. But now I see it as a pie. So if there were four, the pie were cut in four pieces. The mental part of us goes to the psychiatrist, right? That's kind of the department we go into. The spiritual part of us is with religion or your churches, and the physical part goes to the doctor, and that's where I went because it was physical. It showed up physical. What I didn't know is the piece that was missing was the emotional body. I didn't know there was an emotional body, right? And by taking all of the antidepressants and the medications, my emotional body was turned off. I couldn't feel, I couldn't sense, and it's like so, and that was my power. That was my understanding even as a child. You know, it was like I was always geared towards that. And now I have so much more understanding of it in different areas also. And when I put that together and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the whole part, that's the wholeness. Like we are mental, emotional, spiritual, physical beings in the material world. And there's a whole chunk that's missing. And the doctors aren't trained in this. They're not trained in your emotional body. There's no talk about that. And yet it's not that they were wrong or something went terrible. We were misinformed. It's misinformation, you know, and we go to the doctor to heal the metaphysical part of it, right? To heal the byproduct, to heal the part of it that's the after, but we don't get to the root of it. We don't, and that was mine, you know, coming from my mom left when I was a baby. I never had like a homestead, you know, where I felt safe. I don't recall ever being hugged or loved by a mother, you know, or by that female figure. And so there was so much that was missing. And I remember even going to the church and I was having, you know, I went to the priest and I was really trying to figure this out. And he says, you know, this blew my mind. He says, I humbly say this to you, but I didn't have that kind of upbringing. I had a very loving home and I had a mother and father and I felt very safe. And he says, what you have that I don't is you had a seeking, a yearning for a connection that we all have towards a mother that you never had.
That's huge.
You seeked and found God in the rawest source. And now you have been touched by that. I can't even relate. Like it was mind blowing when I realized that it was that lack of connection. It was the absence of safety, of belonging, of sense, you know, just having that sense. And that really started to stir things up and pulled me in, you know, really starting to realize exactly how much this had affected because, you know, mentally and emotionally and physically, you're kind of just living through the world. And it's like, yeah, my mom died, my mom left, my mom, you know, whatever. But there's a lot more than that was going on. There was an aspect of me, a little young part that was still waiting for her to come back and get me. It was insane when I realized this. I was so in my training, I'm a massage therapist, so I do a lot of mind body stuff and also a hypnotherapist, yoga, meditation. So I'm really looking at the whole system. And I did some processing and some work on myself. And this child was frozen up against a tree. And it was the moment that I found out that she died. And there was an overcast. And it was really, you know, dark, about to rain, midday. The adults were talking, but I didn't know what they were talking about. And I was like trying to figure it out and I was scared. And no one would tell me. No one came and told me, your mom died. But I could hear them. And so I didn't understand. And when I did this processing with myself, I was like 8.5 years old. And I just sat like I feel like I'm taking over the show with this, but it's
no, but I want to hear, that's the whole idea because you're not the only one who's had a parent or especially of a mother. And, you know, like a mother and a father are so brutally important in every relationship, but that mother bond with a child is the absolute importance.
So I was at an event in Vegas and I stepped out. It was kind of overcast morning, early before the sun came up. And I'm standing against a tree and I'm taken back into this moment. And so I start to re-enter, to nourish this part. And she looks up, you know, I'm seeing this child and has no idea. She has no understanding. And I said, your mom died. Like I'm trying to like explain this to the younger aspect of myself. And I felt all of it. And I saw the child look up and cry and like, she's never coming back. Like a grown woman frozen in this child body. I don't know what to do. I don't understand. And in that moment of breaking, it's like, oh my God, have I been waiting almost 50 years?
But it's so true that, when we really step back and look at the things that are holding us back, it's usually things that have happened in our childhood that we haven't dealt with.
Well, it was what was happening in my business is it was showing up as I don't know what to do. I don't know what to like. I haven't done it before, right? And
Yeah.
so it was kind of like that. I obviously had never experienced death before, and the adults didn't have the understanding that that was happening. And it makes me think about like because I have 12 grandchildren, and so I'm looking at my grandchild who's the same age as I'm kind of reenacting this, and I hear from the words that she says she doesn't understand either because she said her teacher died. And she's so the next year that her teacher's partner said there was like a yellow butterfly. And so she said something about the memory of her. And she says, Grammy, do all people die and become animals, become butterflies, become. And I was like, oh, see, there's the innocence. I didn't understand. I didn't know. But the fact that that freezes us in time, like an aspect of it, I think of it like a litter of kitty cats. Okay, so you have 6 kittens and you have 5 who are out playing and you have the one that's stuck under the house and just like in a corner, way in the corner. And you're like, come, right? And when you get close, the defense, right? I'm scared.
Self-protection. Yeah.
Yes. And so it wants to come out to play. It wants to be with it. It comes to the edge. And when you get close to it, it goes back and it happens again. And I was like, oh, it's an aspect of us. Like if I were a litter of kittens, there was a part of me. And it doesn't make sense because I'm in a grown body. So it doesn't make sense, right? That this child, and it might not even been at the point of death. It might have been at the point of waiting for mommy to come home because that was the natural instinct.
Or there could have been other factors of, when your mother was like, I don't know if she was sick and if there were other things that went on. And there's a lot that people don't realize. And I know I went through it as a child, that because I was a child, things were never explained.
Yeah,
You sort of put off to the side. And that's a very dangerous situation. I learned that very, well before my children were born. And it's so important that people learn that kids are very smart and they're very resilient, and a good explanation can change their entire world.
yeah. Or just listening to their questions,
Yeah.
because they're what we're so afraid to ask because we're told to be quiet. It's not a good time. You need to, or we think they should already know that. How many times do we say, don't you know better than that? No, their frontal cortex is not on board. They do not know better than that. It is not developed. They are not us. They are not adults. So there was so much that came through, like in the healing of understanding all of this. But she left when I was a child. I don't know her. Like I don't recall. And then she died when I was 8.5, 9 years old. And so it's like there's just this missing piece. And there were a couple of kids after. So there's like a bunch of mixed. There's a total of 6 of us. And I've talked to some of the younger ones, believe that they found me on Facebook. And so we had conversations and they had a wonderful mother and life. I was like, oh, interesting. Because that's not my perception of it at all, right? And so it's like different realities. We are living in different realities, even siblings who experience life at a different thing. We're living in different realities, and yet we don't understand why we don't understand each other. But it's like my sister was older than I. She experienced more, than what I did. I just had the absence, but other people experienced other things. Maybe absence would have been a gift for them.
Well, it's very true. And I always say that, even as a parent, when you have 2 children, let's say, or 3, the first child, you're not the same mother for the first child as you are to the second child. Anyway, your parenting changes from child to child, even from moment to moment as situations arise. You start parenting different. So, of course, it's going to have a reaction on your siblings as well, because it's a different type of parent that shows up at that point in time, and then how we all perceive things in different ways.
Yeah. So there was so much, and now working with like so many clients, and we have a lot of trauma healing. Emotional, mental, physical, sexual trauma. I'm here in Southern Louisiana. We have a 28% suicide rate. There's like, it's just that it's probably higher than now, I would assume, since these last couple of years, because I do know of people in particular, and it seems like it's a bit more than the norm. But those were the official statistics. I was on the board for the Health Coalition, and it's 28%. And I was like, it's not even just that it's 28% that achieved death through the act of suicide. It's the ones who are actively seeking it. So in other words, the overeating, over drinking, over the epidemic with opioids and all of that stuff, that's just slow suicide. It's a checking out. They check out, they just haven't completely checked out yet. And I survived suicide. So as a teenager, and that was my plea. My plea was to go to heaven, to find my mommy, to find God, and I wrote my letter. And so I think there's a misconception even about suicide. It is not a selfish act. It is a survival act. It is a self-preservation act. It is, I cannot take another moment of this pain kind of act. And if it were, and then I was, it's like the whole thing with the church, like, oh, you're going to go to hell if you commit suicide. And I've heard that happen, that my son's best friend hung himself. And this was just a couple of years ago. And the priest stood there and said, I will not stand here and pretend that this is okay. And I'm like, you have no idea what that soul came here for. It could have been to awaken his 50 friends. Like, you have no idea. Yeah. You just stand there and judge. Like, I wanted to walk out. I was so angry. But I also understand that I understand from the other side. When I woke up, 25 years later, I realized how pissed I was. I was still angry. And that's why I say I had to figure out how to want to live. And it wasn't until my friend was diagnosed with 4th-stage liver cancer, and I was doing her nails, and she told me, and I heard a voice, and it said, why does she get to go and I have to stay? And I was like, holy smokes, 20 years later, and I'm still pissed. Whoa, I'm depressed. I got to do something about this. I was already in my right mind to kind of understand something was off, but that's how long I wanted to not be here. And in that moment, I looked up and I said, fine, I'll stay, but I'm not doing anything else that's not fun. And I mean, everything around me fell apart, and I re-identified, myself and like everything. But I mean, it took a very extreme moment like that, to make that shift.
So, I'm always a believer as when things fall apart, they're actually meant for a better purpose. So it can actually come together. So your biggest how does it go? I think it is your biggest, when you're having a breakdown, it actually is more of a breakthrough. And I believe that it actually helps to change us and helps to grow us and make us stronger. But so let's look at the fact that we've got a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of desperate measures these days, a lot of depression, a lot of things. What can they do to sort of channel in to make a change in their lives?
Yeah. So what I think is the number one thing is we need to understand what the misinformation is. Like, because it's the awareness. When we can understand what created the perception, what was the illusion, or what's been the conditioning. And that's really what my book is about. It was like, how did I move from this lack of awareness into actually changing my entire life and my outlook and how I saw things going. So I was bouncing in between victim and martyr, which is, I think, what most people who are in that desperate state are, right? I'm a victim of life. It's crapped all over me. I've been kicked around. I can't get out of this. It's never going to end. And then the other side of that is to completely bypass and do it for Jesus. Like, I'm going to suffer too. I'm on the cross. This is my life. I learned through pain. That was my mantra. I learned through pain. So of course I had 25 years of pain, right? Because whenever I was in pain or suffering, I was on my knees praying. And so, and my understanding through the Catholic Church was that's what it is. And so I was swinging between victim and martyr. And that's what the book's about. It's like, how do you go, like, what's the dance? What do we do now? Because we don't want to live this. Like, we don't want to live on the cross. That's why Jesus, that's the whole story, was like to not have to do that, And I think Jesus came to teach us how to be better humans, not how to be better sufferers. And so the other side of that was being the victim, and life is always happening to me. And so it's like what I found in between was, it was the awareness, it was the understanding. I really did not understand, and I think most people don't, how impactful it is with the stories that we tell ourselves in our mind that came from conditioning. So the book is about how to decondition. So first, it's being present and being aware. It's being aware. I am a victim. Every single one of us are victims when we start to awaken. Just how it is. We have to first recognize that we are a victim of life and circumstances and situations. And then we have to unpack that. This is the part Louise Hay missed. We have to unpack it to understand it. So it's unveiling the layers and layers and layers and layers of deceit that are innocent. It wasn't meant to be. It's what our parents knew, what their parents knew, what their parents knew. It's the way
Right.
that it was. And so when we can start unpacking that and peeling it away, then we have an understanding. Well, what you can understand, you can change. It's when you can't understand it. Why is this happening to me? Why am I so depressed? Why would I never figure it out? And it was because I was disconnected from self and source. That's why I was depressed. That's what was missing, because I never identified myself. I never found myself. I was never worthy or even valid. Like when I had my kid, I remember looking and saying, how could any mom leave a baby? I don't understand. Like I truly did not understand. So unpacking to understand. So then we can pivot, we can navigate, and we can change the neural pathway from what we used to believe into what we want to believe, or what's actual facts and truths about us as a human, right? So
Well,
it's
that's part of the awakening part. Yes.
exactly. And then we get to create or cultivate what's actually possible for us. It's our birthright. It's our birthright to be here to explore and experience and contribute and create, and then it's well, what do you do now? And it's like, well, first you got to choose. What do you want? What do you want to create? And then you get to commit to it. Right? It's a commitment. It's a commitment to source, to God, to self, to your family, to whatever the vision is. And then you have to cultivate. So cultivating is I had to become the person who was okay living. Like, okay, I'm going to be here, but I'm having fun. Like, that's it. Done with that. Right. And I started cultivating that. And that's when things started falling away. And whenever we're cultivating, we also have to cut away what's not working. We have to be willing to let go of the old identity, of the old conditioning. Sometimes it's old friends and patterns and environments. We have to step away from the bars if we want the family, right? We got to step away from the casinos. We got to step away from the food if we want health. We've got to renegotiate some things. And then we got to continue. And Lord, let's find a community that supports it. That's another thing. You got to get around like-minded people who have a different culture than your culture. And I remember when I set that promise, like, okay, that's fine. If I have to stay, I'm staying. I'm having fun. And I did an and. I'm not kidding you. How I knew this back in 2005, I don't know. But I was like, and I want a community.
Wow. That's
being by myself in this. And so I was like, I'll stay, but I want some support. And I want a community with a culture that I want to create to live in. And that's it. There's no more negotiating. And I'll be doing it if I don't have that. But I didn't know. And I had to go back and look at the dates because I didn't know when this happened. So I went to the cemetery and I looked at her headstone to see when because she died right after that. And to see when did all of this occur? Like, when did this happen? I went to the priest in 2011. And that's when the falling apart happened. And I sat in his office and I couldn't leave. I just cried for 3 hours, And he's like, well, you need to read the lives of the saints. This is a mystical experience. And I was like, more rejection, right? More rejection. I kept getting rejection. I was like, I want help. Who is the resource? Little did I know I had the resource from a very early age. I found the little red Bible they give to you in 4th or 5th grade. And when I was scared, I would look up fear and I would read scripture. And when I was alone and when it's like, I had source, but it was unrecognizable in my environment that it was something. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't know what I had.
Well, we don't realize that all the answers are within us and we can find things. But, there's nothing wrong with asking and reaching out for help and maybe having someone guide you. And then sometimes once you're being guided, that's when sometimes things come. Things come to us when we least expect them to happen.
Wow.
And it is something that, that we will all find, but it's having that courage to go out and seek that help.
Yeah. And I just did a podcast on this yesterday. So it's called The Recipe for Courage. And it's actually like, courage is like, we pray to please be brave so I can have the courage to do it. And I was like, actually, like, to write the book, courage came from being afraid and taking action. So the recipe for courage is fear and action. It's like, and so it was like, oh, it's like making mud pies, mud and water. It's like, this is what's required in order to do that. And the courage is the bridge to confidence. We pray for confidence. We look for confidence. We think that an already ready-made business and people following us and all this, if we're looking for the results, us the confidence, but the confidence is built through walking across the bridge of courage. I used to say, like, you have right here, this is the end of the bridge, and you got a pencil walking across to it. And the only way you won't get there is if you don't stop. Like you just got to keep going, going, going. And if you back away and you start like crawfish, and I have a crawfish lake across from you, start crawfish, then it goes down, right? You start losing touch with that. So everything is a dance. I don't believe in balance. I have yet to see balance. I've been trying to balance work and life and kids and like forever. What I see is a dance. I'm able to like dance in the shadow, dance in the light, dance in the beauty, dance in the not so beautiful, right? It's like this ploy and play between. And since I've given myself permission, it's like everything is available. But when I wanted this structure in this box, so that's my advice to, or my happening. Can you still hear me when it?
Yeah, you did. Well, you stopped for a second. Yes, I believe, I'm a believer of when life sort of gets a little rough and things happen, we have to step back a little bit and just allow things to sort of take its place. If we keep on fighting it, it's like, it's the same thing with what you're saying. So if we allow ourselves to step back from it, then we're not going to make it through. If you don't jump through that fire, you're never going to see the other side. That fire is going to stop you, but it's that fire and making it through that fire that gives you that courage, that gives you that upper hand in your thing.
I'm thinking in this moment when I was in that situation, and so I'm thinking of your listeners. It didn't seem possible. That wasn't tangible for me. I didn't understand that. Like I get it, and I get us saying it, but I'm thinking that if there's someone who's sitting there in the position that I was sitting in, because I remember I was at a retreat and I was like, I was ready to out. So because we do a handful of things, right? When something happens, we escape. So we shut down. We go numb. We check out. That's what most of us do. Or some lash out. So you guys know those people. You say something and they boom, they shut you down, right? They throw their pain on you. They splatter it. Or you can work your way through it, which is what I ended up doing. I worked my way through it. I got the tools. I figured it out. Or they check out permanently, which I tried doing. And I swear I would be gone because I was very serious about it. I wrote my letter. I was sure. I was too young to understand really the consequence of it. But I was certain that I was going back to heaven. However, I thought that or knew that. Like I was just, okay, I've had enough here. Bye-bye, let's go. And I was like, whoa, what am I still doing here? And then I went through a whole process of, I was rejected again. I was even rejected from heaven. Remember my mind, I'm like, my mom left. Now I can't get into heaven. Now I'm stuck here. Now I'm angry, right? All of that stuff started really coming into play. And at one point, I was at the doctor. They were doubling my antidepressants one more time. Nobody was figuring this out. It was the same, just trying to fix me with drugs. And I left out the back door. I crossed my husband on the highway, and I pulled up at the school, and he followed me, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I can't go home." And he said, "What do you mean you can't go home?" I was like, I can't go home. And he said, "Well, what do you?" I was like, "I'm going to the mental hospital, and I'm going to get an assessment, and there's something really serious wrong with me." And he's like, "Well, what about your business?" I was like, "I locked the doors. I called clients. I already told them I can't be there." And he's like, "Oh my God." Remember, his first wife was not, it wasn't a great thing. So here I am, 5 kids, 2 businesses. He works shift work. So he's working graveyard, and here's another crazy woman, right? And I get to the place, I do the assessment, and they said, "Are you suicidal?" And I was like, "I would love to die, nothing more, but I can't do it to myself. I have 5 kids, this." And they were like, "Okay, so you don't meet criteria for staying in house." Well, I was like, rejected again. I was like, "Can I get in anywhere?" So it's like that little seed of not being good enough, being rejected, not being worthy, it just kept repeating itself. And that's what I had to unpack and unravel. So that's what I want to offer whoever's listening. There is something somewhere that has been suggested, and it came at such a young age that you don't recognize it. I didn't recognize it. It was because it was like, well, it's just how life is. Moms just leave, right? Yeah. There's no validity to it. No one ever talked to me about it. No one ever asked me questions, or it was just me weeping for a mother figure, for someone. For God's sakes, I'm sitting here, I need a bra, I don't know who to call, my dad's taking me to Western stores, I'm humiliated. There was so much pain to that, not having that mother. But I didn't see it as, it actually was a part of my belief system now, an unworthiness, right? I've been worthy of having a mother, right? I wasn't good enough since birth. Like that's the perception. I wouldn't say that as an adult, but that's what jacks us up, I think, is we're so intelligent now and we're so self-preserved mentally. We've got this defense going on that we won't allow ourselves to go into that childlike. So my question would be, or my suggestion would be, is what would you tell your 3-year-old niece or nephew if it were you, right? Because we can't say our kids because we get mad at our kids, we take them for granted. But if it was, that someone else's child or someone who's really special and you really had a lot of boundaries around, like, and that, say the mother just dropped that child off and they're crying, what would you ask them? Would you tell them to shut up and go in their room and get over it? No, but that's what we do to ourselves.
Well, we always are the worst, of all things that we hurt ourselves the most of anyone else. I always tell people to treat themselves as if they're their best friend, because we wouldn't talk to our best friends in this way that we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. And so it looks like, what do you want, huh? What's happening? What's going on here? And just pause. And that gentleness, that softness will crack something open for you. Pen and paper. It's got to be, you've got to let it move through you. And that's the power of the pen and the power of paper. It's like really just because we've got to get beyond the conscious mind. We've got to get beyond the defenses and allow whatever's going on in the subconscious or what's actually unconscious. So the difference is what we have suppressed and what has been repressed. So what's been repressed was like way before we even knew, right? And it even could come in from generations before us. It could just be something that's relatable from the patterns that's in our body that we don't even know is there. It's kind of like we take on the traits of our ancestors. And so then you have the part where it's just like subconsciously lingering, but it's actually you're compressing it. You're suppressing it, right? And then the other thing is you live in an oppressed environment. So it's repressed, suppressed, or oppressed. I live in an oppressed environment. I'm in Louisiana. I'm basically a witch here because I like essential oils and yoga and meditation. So that puts me in the devil's den, right? All of that stuff. And I mean, I'm still told that today. And it's okay. It's fine because these gifts have really healed me. And I'm glad to have that. And I can go out and help those who want it. And so it's like really understanding what's going on beneath the surface, that if you're feeling that it's like you're feeling it in your nervous system, then chances are it's suppressed. You're actually holding it down. And that's what was taking so much of my energy, that I was being diagnosed with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and adrenal fatigue. And I'm telling you, I have so many organs that are gone now. And that's why I went to the crazy house, is because, and I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but that's what my daughter wrote on her calendar. Mom went crazy. She put that on her calendar, kept it on her wall. Even after she graduated, I saw it. And it was because I had a complete hysterectomy at 29 years old, and my head and my body were disconnected. And I couldn't find myself. They were upping my milligrams of Wellbutrin. They had me on Adderall. I was on Klonopin, Xanax, like you name it, I was taking. I was taking something for pain, something for sinus and allergies, all mixed together. That was my concoction. And they had just doubled the antidepressants. I couldn't find myself. And I had 5.
Well, no wonder.
Yeah. And and I say this because I know that is what's happening. I did, like as a health coach, I did health assessments. That's the cocktail. And so I know whoever's listening to this, there is somebody who has been assigned this cocktail and they think that is helping them. And I'm not saying don't get off the medication. And I'm not saying I don't believe in doctors and medicine, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. My son was air medded in from offshore a few nights ago, and thank God he had an appendicitis attack. And so I believe in modern medicine. But the problem is, the medical community is not targeting the emotional body because that's not their specialty. That's not the specialty. And there was nothing wrong with my brain. There was nothing wrong with my head. There was something wrong with my belief system according to the patterns that I had been brought up in. I had believed this certain perception or this certain story of the way life is that was not true.
And that only, unfortunately, stopped you from growing and from continuing on as you were getting older. So you weren't developing in the way that you really needed to develop, unfortunately, because of all of these other things that were pulling you back.
Yeah. And there's just something that kept me seeking and searching, and I just had to. I think it's because I couldn't get out. So I had to figure out how
Well, that was your, you have to look at it in a very positive way because that's searching because you knew deep down that there was an answer that you had to find.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember if ever I figure this out, I mean, I was always, all my journals were, Dear God, oh Lord, help me, Jesus, Holy Spirit. Like I was always seeking and searching. That's how they would start off. And when I go back and read them, I'm like, oh my God, it was such a victim. It was so bad. But that I knew there was a reason and I knew it was going to be used. And that's what I held on to. I was like, there's no way. I believed in grace and mercy. There was so much of that was so strong. I was like, this is going to be used for something else. I have to learn this to teach it. And I love human design. And I found out I'm a 6'2" role model in human design generator. And it's all about like, there's 3 stages of life. So it's basically a lot of experience. And then you go into hiding and you figure out the solution. And you come back out into the world and you teach it. And coincidentally, I just hit the 3rd stage like 3 years ago. And so it's like, oh, that makes total sense. And right, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. What matters is I now have an understanding that makes sense. And so we don't know. That's the best thing I can say. Let me pick this up. Nobody knows. Like, honestly, you get to tell your mind whatever you want to believe. It's.
Could you repeat that again? Because people don't seem to get that part.
Yeah, no one knows. Like, literally, no one knows. If science knows and they quit questioning, they're no longer science. It's over. Game over. We have to keep discovering and figuring it out. Nobody knows. They think they know. Someone told a story about what they know. But there's actually, it's the mind that wants to know. The mind wants to be right. And if it believes, I learn through pain, I'm closer to God when I'm in pain, then that's what you're going to get. You have to change. You have to reframe the way you think. Now, my podcast and book are called More Than Mindset. So as much as I'm talking about mindset, understand that just like Louise Hay said, you can change your thoughts, but your neurology is married to your past. Your nervous system has acclimated to the environment it was brought up in. And there is a magnet. So when people are addicted to certain people and bad behaviors, it's because the neurology is married to it. And as soon the nervous system calms down because it's familiar. But then when they come and they want to love you and give you a beautiful car and how you can't handle it because your nervous system is not married to that environment. That's why it's more than mindset, because you have to understand the neurology and you have to take action. So when you change your thoughts, you don't necessarily take action. When you say affirmations, you don't necessarily take action. But if you start taking action and courage is born because you've just created courage and you have the tools for your nervous system to acclimate to the new environment and the new identity. Now you dance in a different dance, right?
Now you can make actual changes in your life that will actually change things. Yes, absolutely.
That's the punchline approach. And that's what I named my book. Because
well, you keep referring to your book. Could you show everybody your book?
In the process. So here was my mission. If ever I figure this out, I'm going to teach it until I die. Okay. And my biggest pain point was reading 300 to 400 to 600 pages of hundreds of books. I literally moved 500 books here 2 weeks ago, or actually last week. If ever I figure this out, I'm going to teach just the process and they're not going to have to read through anything. I'm going to just give them the tools. I'm going to give them the punchline. So that's what we called it, but it's actually in the process. That's it right there. It's on Amazon. It's literally called The Punchline Approach, How to Gain Power and Control Your Life. But we are changing it to match the podcast, and it's going to be called More Than Mindset. And it's when changing your thoughts and affirmations don't change your life.
Perfect.
Not official, but most likely it gets turned in the end of this month. But that's what we're leaning towards, is because we know how important mindset is, right? It's like, I'll never say that, but you can change your thoughts all you want. If your neurology is married to your past or to your environment or to a belief system, and your emotional body is part of your neurology, is part of your nervous system, and that hasn't changed or acclimated, you can win the lottery. You can get the $1 million husband. You can get, it doesn't matter. It will not affect you because you can't receive it because you don't believe it. And so we have to change our belief system, and we have to take action, which is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable, and that's why most people don't do it. And so having a morning routine, getting up before the sun, moving your body, writing down your goals, drinking water, putting nourishing food in your mind, body, soul, right? These sorts of things every single day. I have a process, it's called Jamming for Greatness. And it's journal, affirmation, but the affirmation's actually a flip. The affirmation is the turnaround from the journaling. Meditation, movement, intention. What is your intention? And is it aligned with your integrity, or is it what someone else told you should be trying to attain? Nourishment, nourishing the mind, body, and soul, what you think about, what you eat, what you drink, what you do, how you connect to source. And G is for greatness. And the way you live a great life is by attaining your goals in gratitude, no matter what it looks like. The days you're flipping and flopping and floundering and failing, in gratitude. This is how we attain greatness, is we have to set goals. We're here to create. And if we're not creating, we're going to be dull and bored and miserable, because we're creators. God created us to be creators, to experience, to expand, to explore, to taste the Skittles. Like, let's get out there and play around and mess up a little bit. I want to demystify humanity. Get off of the cross. That's Jesus's message. I think this is the embodied gospel.
Well, you are a powerful woman. I love it. You are so many wonderful golden nuggets that you have given. And if anybody wants to, this will be up on our Facebook, and Kim will have it also on hers, so you can re-listen to it, because there were so many incredible golden nuggets that she has shared with us. And you're just a wealth of information, and people need to know all of these things.
Yeah, I do think we're in a desperate state of time. There are so many. If you guys are out there and you have the ability to help someone else, I want to encourage you to do this work. People need you. People need us more than ever. 2 years ago, we were in a bind. We're in a greater bind now. This is a big deal.
Yeah. Times are not getting easier. They have become much harder, but we can make it through.
Of course, of course.
We just have to keep the belief in that and taking action and moving forward.
Yeah, and if you've been called help, answer the call. It's self-preservation that's stopping you from getting out there and helping people, because I'm afraid of what people think if I go online, all that stuff. That's self-preservation. What Glenda and I were saying is, like, when you no longer matter and the wholeness matters, we're all on the same team. We're on team humanity, man. We're all in it together. And once we recognize that, then that's when there's endless possibilities and potential, right? That's when we can actually create impact, because we're teammates, man. We're on the same team.
This is one world that we are in. It's supposed to be a loving world. And it's time to start putting that to good use, to love one another instead of beating up on each other. But most importantly, we have to start with ourselves. And it also has to start with you first. So it's time to stop beating up on yourself, taking that leap of faith, and learning to love yourself no matter what.
And taking responsibility for being a creator. That's really what I recognized is, I kind of sat back and I got a little like, oh my God, it'll never change. I'm stuck here. I kind of went through that. And then I realized, hold on. I want to make impact. I don't need to worry about getting on someone's stage. I need to worry about my 12 grandkids and my 5 kids and their partners. That's a lot of people. I can start with them, and what they produce in this world is how I create impact. Like, I was totally missing it. And I was like, it's my personal responsibility. It's all of our responsibilities. Like, what am I doing? Leaving it up to the school system, the medical community, the church, the college, the business world to teach my grandkids how to be prosperous and abundance? Oh, I live there. Hold on. That is my responsibility to show them that I am the role model of this bunch. And that's a lot of little people.
Huge. And that is the most important. You just said it right there. If we can't teach our own, who are we going to teach?
Yeah, totally. I was so upset with my family because I felt like a unicorn, right? I mean, I live the way I live, and they're just like, they got this country mentality. They're like, she's crazy, and here I am trying to like get this going in a rural community. And so I felt defeated. I felt rejected, and I felt alone in my own family. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm not validating and seeing me. So of course they're not. Now they're all on board. We're all in it together. It's like completely changed, but we have to validate ourselves. We can't wait. It's just like waiting for courage or waiting for confidence. You can't wait for validation either. You got to connect to source and self. That is your validation.
Wow. Okay. What is the one message that you would tell your younger self?
Mm. Don't wait for someone to approve. Approve yourself. Don't wait. Yeah, I spent so many years waiting for the approval of whoever in order for me to have permission to speak this message. I needed them to tell me it was valid. I needed them to confirm that it was something, or that it was impactful, or that it meant something. It's kind of like writing a book, right? So many people want to write, but they need someone else. And I was like, Glenda, I waited so many years in order to get that from society, instead of just claiming that. So guys, you got to just claim it. Claim abundance, claim healing, claim prosperity, claim it. Like, don't wait for someone else to tell you.
Or don't worry about what the other guy is going to be saying.
I know, but it's almost impossible, man. I'm like, okay, you say you don't care, but we do. Like, it's our innate human oneness. We can't not care what other people think, right? You just got to do it anyway. Like, you can care, and it can suck, and you keep doing it. So I've changed that a little bit, because I used to try to get there, but I can't. I love people, man. I can't not care. I can't. I care what they think about me. I do. And I don't know how not to. I've tried.
But not to the point where it's holding you back.
Yeah, for sure. Like, now I'm like, oh, okay, they didn't like that. They don't get that. They don't want to hear that. I'm a bit too much for some people. You guys can imagine, right? I'm a little out there.
That's where I'm meaning. When somebody's holding you back, then that's when you have to stop worrying about it, because people are going to talk anyways.
They don't know what they don't know, and they're not you, and they're not having your experience, right? We just think everyone thinks like us. Now I realize, no, they're not thinking like us. They're not us. And not everybody has this burning passion either. And so I was trying to dilute that. Marianne Williamson's poem really woke me up to that. It's like trying to dim my light so other people wouldn't be uncomfortable. Game changer for me. Yeah. And so it really is that. Like, if you have that burning desire to go out and serve, not everyone has that. It's okay. You can go do it anyway. And here's my number one thing. I'm going to leave with this. We try not to do it alone, but we are alone. We're connected. We're all together. But our mission, our purpose, our power, we are alone. And once I realized that, we come into the world alone. We die alone. We live alone. We just do it with others. But it is a personal journey. And so it's okay to be alone. And so I'm willing to lead now, whereas before I was willing to wait for someone to show me how to lead. I'm like, oh, we just do it.
And that is the most incredible, beautiful way to end this conversation today. And the learning that it is okay to be alone.
Yeah. And I think that's a big lesson that COVID has gifted so many of us.
Yeah.
But it really is hard, but we were always alone anyway. You're making those decisions on your own, but it's your responsibility. We can only take responsibility for ourselves.
Well, that's exactly it. We only have ourselves to look at, not anybody else. Yeah. Kim, you are just an absolute blessing. I thank you so much for sharing this time and telling your story and gifting us with some beautiful information. I'm so totally grateful for you. And I hope that anybody, if they have any questions, we will put a link where you can reach Kim below this interview, as well as her book. And it's about time to learn that it's only you that matters, and you are the messenger. So just take it and gift it to everybody else around you.
Let us taste it. Bring on the expression of your individuality. Like, seriously, that's it. We quit trying to be like someone else and go be yourself, because that's the gift. That's the contribution. So we want to experience that person, that part of you, that individuality. Like, don't you? I want to experience everyone's uniqueness.
I love it. Yeah. I love looking at people, how unique they can be. And you know what? what a world that we live in when we can show everybody's uniqueness.
Yes. Thank you for the invite. This was lovely. Got me all fired up.
Yay. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to today's Wise Women's Words. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, remember, it's all about you. Just love yourself and know that you are enough. That's all that matters. Take care and have a beautiful day. Bye for now.